Good afternoon. My name's Don Gibson. I'm town moderator for the town of Marshfield, and I'm here this afternoon with our town administrator, Michael Moresco, and our town council, Robert, or I refer to him as Bob Galvin, and that's how I'll call him during the course of this particular taping, to review with you the upcoming warrants for the annual town meeting and the special town meeting. I would want everyone to know that the meeting is on Monday night, the 24th of April at 7 p.m. It's going to be in the auditorium, not the gymnasium where we have been in past years, but it's going to be in the auditorium, much more comfortable seating. Please check in early so that the meeting can get started right at 7 o'clock. With the assistance of the town administrator and town council, we're going to go through each and every article on the special town meeting warrant and on the annual town meeting warrant. And if you haven't gotten your copies yet, this is what they look like this year. So please, you can go down to town hall, you can go down to where the library, they're online.
It's online. People can go online on the town's website. There's a section that says town meeting, and all the important publications are up there.
Now, I also want to call to your attention that in addition to the warrant articles for the special town meeting and the warrant articles for the annual town meeting, you are going to find that there are 5 appendices in the back of the warrant. And a lot of work has gone into these. And if you do your homework, I think you'll find a lot of questions answered and a lot of information, financial information provided. I mean, appendices A is the town of Marshfield debt. We usually get questions about that at town meeting. Appendices B is the comparison of the operating budgets in 2022, 2023, and the proposed budget for 2024. So you can compare those. And if you have questions as to how much spending has gone up or increased, there's the factual information. Appendices C is very important because that is the 2024 budget worksheets for the wastewater enterprise account, the water enterprise account, and the solid waste enterprise account. Also, Appendices D, we talk about indirect charges. You may hear that during the course of the town meeting. They're all set out there. Please, please, please take a look at that. And then Appendices E is the capital budget. And that's really the 5-year plan from 2024 to 2028. And take a look at that. You can see what capital items have been purchased or acquired or not turned down over the course of that 5-year period and where we're headed. So please do your homework. The meeting will appreciate it. We'll go much quicker. And let me stop and give you just a little bit of a personal comment. I am in my 6th year as town moderator. I did not stand for re-election this time, so this will be my last town meeting, and I was looking forward to it very much. Unfortunately, I have a medical appointment in Boston on Monday, and I'm not going to be able to conduct the meeting. But we're fortunate that Jim Fitzgerald, former town moderator and soon to be the official town moderator after the local election, is going to conduct the meeting with the approval of the town clerk and by consensus of those present. And he's going to do an excellent job. And he's very prepared. He's been studying very hard. And I think that you'll find he will do as well or even better than if I were there personally. I would like to take a personal opportunity to thank you, town meeting members, for the privilege of being your moderator. It has been a great privilege and an honor for me. I've enjoyed it. To think that I am one of an unbroken line of town moderators going all the way back to colonial times is something that I will cherish forever. So thank you. It's been a privilege. I'm sorry I can't be with you Monday night. I will be watching on television though, and I hope everything will go well. But let's get to the business at hand. All right, the special town meeting warrant has 14 articles. Now, we are going to have also what's called a consent agenda, not only for the special town meeting, but for the annual town meeting. And if you want to, I'm going to ask town council just to explain to you briefly what a consent agenda is and what the purpose of a consent agenda is.
Good evening, everybody. So a consent agenda is used by a moderator in order to expedite matters at town meeting, lumping articles that require similar votes together, allowing the town meeting to pass them basically with one vote. We typically list all the matters that might be appropriate for a consent agenda in a handout so everybody can see what articles are included, what the motions are, and then we make 1, 2, or in this case maybe 3 omnibus motions disposing of many of the routine matters at town meeting, all on a single vote.
Yeah, these are non-controversial items, many of which have to be passed every town meeting. So it's really been well received by town meeting members, and I don't know about the two of you, but I've been approached by town meeting members asking us, can't you put more on the consent agenda, because it helps, it helps us get through the warrant and get everyone home at a reasonable hour. Now, the rest of the articles on the the special town meeting warrant will be by lottery. Now, that's not the case with the annual town meeting, because we have a bylaw that says that we must take the operating budget, and I also include the capital budget, these financial articles. We have to take those in order, and they're not subject to the lottery. So let's turn now to the warrant for the special town meeting, and let's start with Article number 1. Mike, you want to explain that?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is a very typical article. Article 1 deals with unpaid bills. If a bill is unpaid beyond the end of the fiscal year, the only way to pay it is by a vote at town meeting, and it needs to pass by 9/10.
All right, Article number 2, what is that?
Article number 2 is the article proposed by the Marshfield School Committee, and that is for Marshfield schools to join the South Shore Regional Technical Vocational School System and join the other towns of Abington, Cohasset, Hanover, Hanson, Norwell, Rockland, Situate, and Whitman. Not only does Marshfield Town Meeting need to approve this article, but those towns that I just read need to approve Marshfield joining.
6 out of 8, is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, 6 out of 8. Now, this article may generate, a lot of discussion and debate, and I'm sure Jim Fitzgerald will make certain that all sides are heard. But it's a newer article. It's been discussed in previous presentations that I've attended by the school committee and by the superintendent. So I hope that we'll get to the heart of the matter rather quickly. But he'll put whatever limits are necessary on the debate so that we can go on with the rest of the meeting. So Article number 3, where are we there?
So Article number 3 is a change to Schedule A, which are full-time employees. There's a change in the grade for COA van driver that's been increased, and benefits manager that's been increased, and also on Schedule B, which are part-time seasonal positions, there was the addition of social day manager, assistant social day manager, and assistant food service manager.
All right, let me stop for just a moment. I'm going to turn to town council and ask him to address an issue that comes up periodically during the course of the meeting. People have the warrant. They see the letter of each particular article, the content of each particular article, but then on the screen at the head of the auditorium, they see what's called a motion. So what is the difference, Bob, between a motion and the actual article as printed in the warrant?
Well, in most cases, they're very similar to one another, but they're not always identical. The warrant contains a list of articles or matters that the legislative body, which is the town meeting, is asked to approve. Sometimes it contains a proposed appropriation of money. Sometimes it contains a proposed change to a bylaw, a general bylaw, zoning bylaw. Sometimes it seeks authorization for the selectmen or another department of the town to exercise some authority that's required, requires legislative approval. Sometimes it's the adoption of a particular provision of state law. These are the general topics of what we're asking the town meeting to vote on, all listed in either the special town meeting warrant or the annual town meeting warrant. When we come to the town meeting floor, in most cases we know more definitively exactly how much money we're looking to appropriate, not just a sum of money, or we might have greater detail regarding another matter, and we've placed that actually into a written motion. And in those cases, we're actually asking the town meeting to vote specifically on the matter as moved and not necessarily as written in the warrant. So the warrant provides the general warning to our residents that and voters as to what we intend to act on at town meeting, and the motion is the specific authority to act in the very precise manner in which we're asking the town to vote.
All right. And one other comment I'd like from you. If someone offers an amendment, and we talk about is it within the scope of the article, what are we looking at, you and I, or in this case, Jim Fitzgerald and you, when considering something like that?
I think first of all, a moderator like yourself and Mr. Fitzgerald and Mr. Robinson have always looked to see if there's some relevance to the proposed amendment to the article. And if it meets the relevance test, then you have to look at the nature of the proposed amendment to determine whether it is proposing to increase an appropriation or decrease an appropriation in a manner that was contemplated by the warrant. And the moderators have always used a rule of thumb of about 10% when we're dealing with appropriations. As long as it's within that narrow scope, some articles that are proposing an appropriation might be within the scope of the article. But in many cases, we've had people, no matter how well-intentioned, proposed changes to articles that either won't work, are not relevant, or would render the article unlawful. And in those particular circumstances, the moderator and/or myself, if requested, might determine the article, the proposed amendment is beyond the scope of the article.
Now, as you go through the warrants, town meeting members, if you intend at town meeting floor to offer an amendment to any of the articles that are here or motions that you see on the screen, if your amendment is more than 10 words, it has to be in writing. And I would urge you, please get your proposed amendments to town council or to myself or to Mr. Fitzgerald at the beginning of the meeting. Please, please, please understand that it takes time to consider an amendment and whether it's within the scope or whether it's lawful, as Bob just explained. So if you can help us out, we'd appreciate it. If it's more than 50 words, you have to have a copy of the amendment for the entire meeting. And we, and what would we anticipate, do you think?
300, 350.
All right, so you'd have to have 350 copies of that proposed amendment, so it can be at the entranceway, and it can be passed out or picked up by the town meeting members. So remember that. Let's go on to Article number 4, the special.
And Mr. Moderator, just
Sure,
before we do,
please.
I do want to add the Schedule B. The
Oh, please,
changes
yes.
reflect with the animal inspector.
That's Article 3. We're still in
Yep.
Article 3.
Article 3,
of the
Schedule
special.
B, part-time seasonal positions. So there was a change in animal inspector, assistant harbor master, lifeguard, beach attendant, custodian at the COA, standard intern, intermittent police patrolman, recreation assistant leader, and field coordinator. And most of those are changes in the salary composition, and a number of them based on the minimum wage changing to 15.
All right, let's go on to Article 4 then. This is from the Select Board. What's being accomplished here?
So this is free cash. So free cash is it's actually kind of an oxymoron because there's no such thing as free cash. However, when we put the budget together, it's put together almost 18 months by the time it's passed, and the budget's ending. So depending on good economy of scale, good services, there are funds that are left over that have been appropriated. Once the Department of Revenue certifies in September the close of the fiscal books for that previous year, there is money that's left over. If you're very good at budgeting, there's money left over. If it's a very difficult financial year, sometimes you're in the rears, but we had free cash. And then the free cash, the policy in town is to use it's a one-time. We don't fund contracts with it. We don't fund raises with that. They're really for one time, one hit.
And am I correct when I say, Mike, that with respect to the monies that are listed on page 4 of the special town meeting warrant, they have, it's not like someone can make an amendment or a motion from the floor and say, I want to use it for X purpose or Y purpose. Doesn't it have to be within the general purpose for which it was originally appropriated?
I would say yes, but certainly I will defer to
Am I
legal
correct,
town
or am I
counsel.
misstating that?
There's a possibility that if we have an article that doesn't have enough funding, someone might seek to increase the funding and ask for that to be paid from free cash, and as long as it meets within the parameters that the town administrator indicated and it's not for a recurring expense, there's a possibility that some excess free cash could be appropriated by the legislative body for that additional purpose.
All right. But as Mike said, it's just because it's free cash doesn't mean it's free.
That's correct.
Let's go on to Article number 5. This is a Public Works article.
So Article number 5, what they're looking for is they had pieces of equipment that were previously approved at the special town meeting in April of '22. Article 7, Item 3. However, due to a supply chain issue, costs for all 4 pieces increased, and the account is now short of the required funding to acquire sidewalk machines. The remaining balance of $16,566 will be paid for with free cash. So it's a combination of the $7,630 in this article, as well as the $16,000 in free cash to cover the cost of the 4 pieces of equipment that were ordered that increased in price from when the order went in.
And Article 6 is also from the Board of Public Works.
Yes, that is to cover the increase in curbside pickup by $500,000.
Okay. Article number 7, also a Board of Public Works article.
This article, the Board of Public Works purchased a piece of property in the water protection zone at 80 Union Street. There is a house on that particular property. We've had to have the police go down there a number of times. We've had to have the house boarded up. Kids were going in there and using the house. DPW is coming forward asking for money so that they can tear this particular building down and remove it. It's kind of challenging to remove this building because when you go down the 80 Union Street driveway, it comes down the very end and there's a 4-foot drop. There was some kind of road there at some time, but it's gone. So DPW is in the process of going to the Conservation Commission to get their permission to put a temporary road so that the heavy-duty trucks can get down there. They can tear the house down and cart all the debris away, then take out the road and then restore it the way it is presently.
I understand. Article 8, also from the Board of Public Works.
Article 8, this is for the Comprehensive Master Plan, was last updated in 1995 for the wastewater treatment facility. This is something that they need to do, and it's about $100,000.
Okay. Article number 9, also a Public Works article.
So as folks who have been following what's going on in the town, there are a number of pipes that are broken related to the sewer. While they were doing some emergency repairs, they decided to take a look at what does the rest of the system look like. They use cameras to look at large diameter sewer pipes along Surf Avenue, Ocean Street, and Plymouth Ave, up to the Plymouth Ave pump station, and there's been serious deterioration of the pipe. So they're talking about relining the pipe or replacement depending upon the feasibility of which option is more economically feasible.
All right. Article number 10 from the Select Board.
This is an article that will allow an easement. We're putting photovoltaics on top of the school property. In order for the company to get in, they need authorization. This will provide the authorization for transmission lines, installing the equipment, etc.
Right. These are proposed solar facilities. Is
That
that
is
correct?
correct, yes.
All right. Article number 11 from the Select Board.
Article number 11 is very similar. It's an easement at the DPW 965 Plain Street for the new facility that they're building out back. This will allow Eversource to run add some telephone poles and some electric wire for electricity.
Article 12 from the Select Board.
So this is an article. So there's an article that we'll come to very shortly. There was a private petition article looking to get a seasonal drink off-premise license. Upon looking at this, the town no longer has available any drinking on premise, or for that matter, any drinking off premise seasonal. We do have off seasonal. Pardon me. So we have two kinds of licenses that we're asking for here. We have the license where you can drink, a restaurant license. So since there's drinking on premise, there are no licenses available to the town. So what that does is no new restaurants will come here. No one's going to open a restaurant and invest economically if they can't have a liquor license. And then we have consuming the beverage off premise, which is a package store. Right now we have a number of package stores that operate on a seasonal license, which gets to be very confusing because a seasonal license runs from January 15th to April 1st. And then what happens in between, you can't do that license. So what town meeting's asking, what the board is asking town meeting, do they agree that we should ask the legislature for a home rule petition to increase the number of licenses by 3 for consuming on the premise and 3 for consuming off premise? If town meeting voted that, then the would go through the normal legislative process.
All right. Article 13 is also a select board article.
Article 13 deals with the South River Park. South River Park is, to the left of it, there is a piece of land that the town is interested in buying. It's 2160 Ocean Street. It does say in the warrant, for some reason, Veterans Park, but it's actually the South River Park. And it abuts that land, and if town meeting votes that, want to have that as open space to add to the South River Park.
All right, and Article 14 is a citizen's petition article. Can you just explain what that is generally, Bob?
Sure. Well, in this case, a woman by the name of Valerie Marshfield and a number of other residents, I believe that were associated with Hubbard's Cupboard, desired to have an all-alcohol package store license, which operates on an annual basis, not a seasonal basis. And I'm not sure if Hubbard's Cupboard operates with a seasonal all-alcohol now, but in any event, they felt it was important. There were none available because it's determined on the basis of state law and based on population. So she's asked that the town vote to petition for a special act. So I assume if the earlier article passes, Ms. Marchione is unlikely to move forward on her article because her article would be supplemental to that.
So we'll have to wait and see as to what happens with respect to Article 12, but I understand your point. It's well taken. So that concludes the 14 articles on the special town meeting warrant. So what we're going to do now is we're going to turn to the annual town meeting warrant, and we should have explained this at the outset, but the difference, as I understand it, with respect to the items in the special town meeting warrant, if passed, especially as far as appropriation, we can use that in this fiscal year.
Immediately.
Immediately, that's right, immediately. Whereas the annual town meeting warrant, when you look at these financial figures that we're going to go over, we're talking about the next fiscal
July
year.
1st, that's correct.
All right. Okay, so let's turn now. There's 21 of these articles. Now I can tell you now that Article 16, which is an article from the planning board, is being withdrawn and passed over. It will not be considered. And we've been informed, and we're trying to confirm, that the citizens petition article, Article 21, with respect to the operation of Peter Iago Park, may also be withdrawn. So there may be 2 of these articles that are not going to be considered by town meeting. Now, the town moderator also has the authority to link articles that are similar with respect to subject matter, and I'm going to do that, and as will Jim Fitzgerald on Monday night. We're going to link Articles 10 and 11, which are planning board articles, and Articles 14 and 15. So after we get through the operating budget and the capital budget, and we turn to the lottery for the annual town meeting warrant, if 11 comes up, we'll consider 10 first. We'll go 10 and then we'll go 11. If Article 15 comes up on the lottery, the cage of ping pong balls, we will go to Article 14 first because they're related. So please take note of that, and we'll emphasize that again at the beginning of the meeting. Article number 1 of the annual town meeting, what is that, Mike?
So this is to allow the different departments to do their annual report. The annual report revisits the time frame of July 1 of 21 to June 30th of 22.
Article 2?
Article 2 is the standard for salary of our elected officials.
All right, and Article 3, which is one of the main reasons that people come to a town meeting, is the operating budget for the town of Marshfield. And this is in a format that Mike and his financial team and working with me have developed over the years. It's called an omnibus budget article, and a lot of thought has gone into this, and you'll see that each particular department is given a number. If you look, for example, right on page 2, the first one that comes to your attention is moderator. Well, we'll go past that. How about select board? That's department or section 122. So Mr. Fitzgerald, Jim Fitzgerald, will go through these with you. I've been doing just the totals in each section. And if you have a question, you want to question either a personnel or you want to question expenses, you can say hold or just the word question, but you have to say it loud enough so it can be heard at the front of the auditorium. We'll go through the entire article, and at the end of the article, we will ask for a vote on the articles that are the line items, sections that weren't questioned. And then we'll go back and we'll take the questions one at a time as they came. So if you question something, please make sure you get to the mic quickly so that we can recognize you and find out what additional information you wanted. If everything passes as proposed, you're looking at a at an operating budget of 109, just slightly in excess of $109 million. So I'm going to let Mike explain this. He's worked very hard on it. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So folks should familiarize themselves with the budget. It is big. It's listed by department, as the moderator mentioned. When you go by department, you'll see that 3-digit number. That's the particular department. And if the department has elected officials, the salary will be there, the personnel charge for the employees that work in that department, and the expenses for that department. And as the moderator said, if you have a question, yellow question, and the moderator will make note of that, and then he'll go through and pass what's not questioned and go back and answer questions on things that are questioned. And this is every facet of town government is in here. And I do want to draw special attention on page 7 of the warrant. It's the annual town meeting appropriation, and you'll see that there is a number of items that are listed there. For instance, the senior work-off program is $60,000, and then the Cliff Rogers Free Library, $1,000, Grad Night, $1,000, South Coastal County Legal Services, $1,000, North River Wildlife Rehabilitation, Inc., $1,000, Massachusetts Coastal Coalition, $1,000, Arc of the South Shore, $1,000, Marshfield Council on Aging Boosters, $1,000. And there is a process. Years ago, people remember some of these were individual articles as high as $5,000. What the selectmen and previous administrations have done, and we've continued it now for probably 15 years, is there's a process in January. They have to submit financial documentation of how their organization is doing. If they're a 501c3, they need a copy. They all have to file a 990. They have to file their nonprofit report with the State Attorney General Public Charities, and if everything checks out, they're entitled to $1,000 unless town meeting was not to support that. But town meeting's already supported that piece of it.
And this provides additional specificity because in years past, people would say, well, who's getting what and where is it? It's all in this omnibus budget. So as Mike said, in terms of operating expense for the town in fiscal 24, this is it. This is, what you see here contains for each particular department within the town. And if you study this and you have your questions ready, we'll go through it as thoroughly as necessary, but it allows us to move quicker in terms of getting an ultimate approval. Because without approval of this in some fashion, the town can't operate.
That is correct.
All right, we're going on to art.
Don, can
Yeah,
I
sure,
add
please.
something too? So every year at town meeting, there's kind of this tug and pull between those who want to ask a lot of questions and those who want to advocate for why you should pass or not pass an article. And it would really be just helpful if everybody considers coming to any of the meetings that occur in advance of town meeting and asking those questions, because most people want to come and listen to a thoughtful debate about why something should pass or not pass. But coming to town meeting uninformed, not having picked up the warrant and asking questions that could be asked at any one of a number of public meetings with the various boards, the joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen and the Advisory Board, it really kind of slows us down. And although I'm sure it is important to you, if you're a voter and you have a question, you have to actually think of the impact on your fellow residents that have done that or don't have questions, that just want to listen to why you think the article should be supported or not. And I have always kind of supported the moderators in bringing the debate to a head, and the questions do slow us down and are repeatedly the subject of topics of how can we make town meeting better, and how can we make town meeting better is starting by picking up the warrant, reading it, asking those questions in advance.
And during the 6 years I've been town moderator, I've also taken the step that if someone asks a question, I will frequently ask them, do you know the answer already to the question? And if they do, then I will ask them to share that information with the town meeting so that we'll know when we vote either to approve or disapprove a particular article, that additional factual information that town meeting member brought forward. As Bob said, this is not a deposition. It's not a hearing. It's an opportunity. If you need additional information, I'll be the first one, and town officials will be the first one to get it to you. But if you already know that information, and the only purpose of your question is to compel a particular town meeting official to answer a question, we're not going to allow that to take place. So, as Bob says, for everyone's sake, there, senior citizens, people who had to get babysitters so that they could go, people who can only come one night, they can't come two. Please, do your homework ahead of time. We would appreciate it. They will appreciate it. Also, I'll get you, Mike, the town administrator will make a presentation with respect to this article, but it is our custom to allow the school committee to also give a presentation with respect to its portion of the budget. I think the last time I looked it was like 54 million or something.
55.
55 million? All right, I was close.
Yep.
Million here, million there. But we usually restrict presenters to 5 minutes. We have in the past extended the time for the town administrator and the superintendent of schools because this is such a large budget and these are such large appropriations. So please understand that they may be given additional time, and they'll have PowerPoint presentations for you to look at as well. You had a
Mr. Monroe, I just want to thank you for saying that because I was going to talk about that. Superintendent and I work together, so we're going to keep our presentation within the 5 minutes so that we can get on to the heart of the matter, and that is the voting on the budget. And people, our residents and taxpayers that come to town meeting should feel really good because, even though it's the Board of Selectmen town administrator budget, it goes through checks and balances with the advisory board. When the town administrator and the financial team, when we put the budget together, we meet with all of our department heads to find out, we start basically, what are you going to need to replicate what you did before? What are your costs for collective bargaining? You add all that in. You add in the cost of goods that you're going to need, and you sort of make estimations. And then, we craft a budget. Budget's presented a couple of times to the select board. They support the budget, and then at the end of January, the budget goes to the advisory board. The advisory board's 9 members go through and meets their assigned department heads, and they go through the expenses, they go through the personnel, the elected official charges, and then they vote on their number, which is usually our number.
So, the point being is a lot of work has gone into this ahead of time. And as Bob has indicated, meeting after meeting, consultation after consultation. So that doesn't mean you can't question something, but just realize that these figures aren't coming out of the air. There was thought behind them, planning behind them, and recognize that. So let's go into Article 4. This is the capital budget article. Explain this one, Bob.
So
Mike.
a capital budget article is just that. It's capital requests that are over $25,000 and have a longer than 25-year, up to a 25-year life expectancy. No, pardon me, $25,000 5-year life expectancy. And this is funded by either borrowing supported by taxes, and going into this budget cycle, the Board of Selectmen voted to authorize a borrowing of $1.25 million. So that is the limit. And there are articles in here that are also supported by retained earnings from the DPW. And as you go through, you want to take a look at the last 2 columns on the right-hand side, because that is there's one column that says Capital Budget Committee recommends, and that is what they're recommending and funding. And then if you look to the right of that, you will see borrowing supported by taxes or funding by retained earnings. So depending upon which category it fits into, that tells you how it's being funded.
Also, I want to make the point, and Mike, tell me if I'm correct, that as a result of questions that were coming from the town meeting floor, you'll see as you go through these columns, a column says fiscal year 23 requests, and it's blank. So there are items that were requested to be funded, capital items, that are not being funded, but they're being shown to you. Am I correct?
That is correct.
So that you can know that that particular department made a request, the Capital Budget Committee said no, and that's not, there's no money being appropriated for that within the capital budget article. All right, so again, we'll go through those as quickly as we can. If you have questions concerning any of them, and we'll then vote on everything that wasn't questioned, and we'll go back to the things that were. Let's move on now to Article 5.
Article 5 is a standard revolving fund article. This sets your FY23 total expenditure limitation for revolving funds, and we have revolving funds for integrated preschool, turf fields, recreation, beaches, GATRA bus, and last year at town meeting we added senior center general services, which funds in part their corporate kitchen for their restaurant.
All right. And this article is establishing, as I understand it, just the authorization. In other words, the parameters for each particular
For their expenditure.
expenditure. It doesn't necessarily appropriate the money. Is that correct?
Well, that's the limit. So they take in their receipts. It's revolving fund. It's self-sustaining.
That's right. Okay. So what I'm saying is that if you look at any one of the ones like the GATRA bus, if you go all the way over to the far right, are you appropriating 109,000, or when you look at the left column, 117,000, you're not necessarily appropriating that. It's a revolving fund.
That's correct.
All right.
Yeah, and that chart is actually used to show what we spent
Yeah.
on an annual basis, which
Yeah.
our bylaw requires.
Right.
Okay.
That's why it says expenditure limit.
All right. Article 6.
Article 6 is standard. This is always a town meeting. This is for town meeting to accept the Chapter 90 funds, which the DPW gets from the legislature for road repair. And it's based on a formula, based on how many miles of roads are acceptable streets in the town.
All right. Something that the Board of Public Works desperately wants to be approved. And you'll probably see this on the consent agenda because it is non-controversial. The town needs that money to function. All right, we're going over now to Article 7.
Article 7, this is a standard article on here. As folks know, there's a shortage. The DPW is working with the expansion of Couch Cemetery. It will take a few more years. So in order to generate additional graves, this is an article to buy back graves or lots that are not being used, and the town will buy them back.
Article number 8.
Number 8, this is for a project that the DPW, an $8,100,000 project for the
$8,100,000.
$8,100,000
Right.
for the purchase of upgrading the Plymouth Ave wastewater pump station. And to meet this, they're borrowing by going to the state federal grants to reduce the amount that is borrowed. They're also using the state revolving fund, SRF funds, which will limit the interest rate to no greater than 2%.
Article number 9.
Number 9, this is the Board of Selectmen. This is another annual article. We're at MCM Studios right now under the cable franchising contract for both Verizon and Comcast. There's a percent taken from each of those contracts, and the money set aside to run the PEG access, which stands for Public Education and Government. And town meeting has to accept the money to run it for the following fiscal year. In this particular year, it's $525,000.
And this is a very non-controversial article. It comes up every year, and you're going to see this on a consent agenda. And the point that needs to be made, this isn't tax money. This is money that these utilities have to contribute to essentially do business in Marshfield. So please understand, when you see it on the consent agenda, we're not asking the taxpayers to come up with $525,000. All right, let's go to Article number 10. We start with the first of the planning board articles.
I'll see if town council, do you want to address these issues?
Certainly.
And
for you-
10 and 11 are linked, just to emphasize that again.
So 10 and 11 relate to self-storage facilities. There's been a debate in town over the last 20 years about where, if anywhere, such facilities are allowed. And the planning board had certainly been apprised of this potential issue and has developed this article in order to locate that type of a use lawfully in some districts of the town. And they've lawfully proposed not only to define it in Article 11, but to place it as a permissible use in the B1 to B3 districts, in the industrial district, and in the water resource protection overlay district by special permit where the particular contents of a self-storage unit can be regulated.
Article number 12 is also a planning board article. You want to address that as well?
Sure. There is and people may remember that there used to be a restaurant along Ocean Street in the Fieldston area known as the Daily Catch. Yeah. And I believe that there was a convenience store or two in that area as well. As time and as the times have evolved, that restaurant has closed, and a home has been constructed on the property. I believe the convenience store closed even before that, eliminating the need to have any type of a waterfront business district there, because it's really just a residential area. So I think the planning board feels like this is a housekeeping item that reflects the reality of what the uses are made in that particular section of Fieldston. And I think enough people have come forward saying this is appropriate now that they've proposed it as a zoning change.
All right, Article number 13, another planning board article.
This is an attempt to incorporate into our zoning bylaw the provisions of the Dover Amendment, which makes certain types of educational nonprofit uses or religious uses exempt from zoning.
All right. Article 14 is next. I'll ask you to address that, but I want to remind town meeting members it's also linked with Article 15. So please address both of them.
Sure. Again, responding to the changing times, it's become favorable and I guess popular for people to add accessory apartments to the home. Many times for a family member or a loved one that's older, sometimes younger, moving back into the house. And the state has actually made a significant push to authorize and encourage communities to allow by right people to add accessory apartments so that there's more affordable housing options for people. And Marshfield is responding to that by identifying that accessory apartments are no longer going to be something that you have to go get a special permit for. As long as you're meeting certain parameters that we set forth in the next provision, you can get one by right, thus expediting the development of accessory apartments.
Let me ask you, in Article 15, I see some original language there, but I also see language that has been stricken through.
Yes.
What could you explain that to the town meeting members?
Sure. The planning board has taken a provision of our bylaw that authorizes this use by special permit, and they have streamlined and stripped down that special permit section to basically set forth some very minor parameters for the development of an accessory apartment on most residential properties. And they've left in the aspects that they felt were important if someone was going to be allowed to build an accessory apartment on their property, and they stricken those things that were formally discretionary and the subject of a special permit.
All right, going over now, and it is quite lengthy, so town meeting members, you'll be well advised to study this particular article and what's happening here, because as Bob indicated, this is a real boon to property owners that want to put an accessory apartment there or accessory living space. And I know if you have if you have family members, or either senior family members or the ones that are coming back, the boomerang generation, it's going to be very important to you. Article 16 is another planning board article, but that one is being withdrawn. So you're not going to have that, town meeting members, presented to you that particular evening. We're going now to Article 17, and this is an article that I am going to have, I believe, these are the Conservation Commission articles.
Community preservation.
I'm sorry, Community President. I'll get it straight here, town meeting members. It's late in the afternoon here, but Community Preservation articles. And I would like Bob to explain, certain of these are mandatory. And you'll see at least the first 4 on the consent agenda. But explain what this is and what we're doing here.
Sure. Article 17 is our omnibus funding authorization article with the use of community preservation funds. And the thing that's particularly unique about these funds is they don't appear on the warrant unless the Community Preservation Committee says they can be on the warrant. The first 4 items are required statutory reserves that have to be set aside for the 3 major areas that the Community Preservation Act is intended to fund: historic preservation, affordable space and recreational, and then affordable housing. The 4th is a set aside for administrative expenses. So every year we have to set aside 10% of our projected revenues for historic preservation, open space and recreation, and affordable housing, and up to 5% for administrative expenses of the Community Preservation Committee. So that's what that is, the first 4 articles. Articles, or the sub-votes in section 5 to 10, are specific funding requests that have been presented to the Community Preservation Committee in anticipation of this town meeting vote, and represent requests principally by town bodies, but not exclusively by town bodies, to make improvements to various historic resources, open space or recreational land, or affordable housing goals and objectives. And for example, item number 5 is to appropriate $140,000 for continued repairs and restoration of the Grand Army of the Republic Hall, which is located in North Marshfield and is leased to the North River Art Society. All of our historic buildings require periodic maintenance, and then beyond the periodic maintenance, which is typically taken care of by the lessees, we periodically have some capital improvements, and these funds are required for certain capital improvement projects. Item number 6 is $48,000 to update the town's open space and recreational plan, which is done on approximately every 10-year basis. Number 7 is to appropriate $136,000 for capital improvements to townwide ball fields and playgrounds. And the CPA funding has been really a godsend to help us improve the condition of our fields. The Department of Public Works typically asks for some supplemental funding with CPA funds in order to make that. There's a specific request this year also for another $65,000 to make some capital improvements at the Marshfield Hills Playground, which is next to the fire station in the hills. Number 9 is $37,000 to make improvements to the tennis courts at Peter Igo Park. And number 10 is $20,000 to make improvements to the basketball and multi-use courts at Peter Igo Park. And those requests were made by the Friends of Peter Igo Park and approved by the Community Preservation Committee.
Can you just briefly explain, where do community preservation funds come from?
So in Marshfield, we have a 3% annual surcharge on your real estate tax bill that we are in receipt of and will be paid during the course of fiscal 2024 by the state or through the use of real estate taxes, and that's where that revenue comes from.
All right,
It's a very, very helpful thing because, believe it or not, historic preservation and open space and affordable housing were always the disadvantaged areas where money was never appropriated. And as a result of the changes in the law, these areas are now specifically funded and have a funding source.
Mike, you wanted to offer a comment.
Yeah, just one other thing I wanted to add. When it comes to, so like the GAR Hall, which Town Council mentioned that we do lease that to the North River Art Society, and Daniel Webster, which is leased to the Daniel Webster Trust. Because those are town properties, those private nonprofit organizations that run them are required as part of their lease to make significant contributions each year. So like the Daniel Webster Trust annually reinvest $25,000 of their own money. We've started doing the same with the GAR Hall, North River Art Society. They started in increments because they were dealing with COVID and stuff. 10,000 one year, 12,000 the next, until they get up to 25,000. They'll be investing of their own money, just like the Daniel Webster, in the maintenance of that historic building.
I think it's also important to note that, when the town does have this surcharge on your real estate tax bill, the state comes in and rewards the town for having that and matches, in many cases, the money that we appropriate for these particular purposes. So we get a bonus in most years for having done that. So it really is a good investment where the state returns extra money to us in order to meet our obligations here.
Article number 18 is coming from the Select Board. It's to amend a particular bylaw. Is that correct, Michael?
So this is a bylaw, and then I'll let Bob jump in, but basically we have private petition articles and we have resolutions. And this will sort of codify that. When you go to town meeting, there's a resolution, the moderator will always say, resolution goes to the end. This also talks about private petition articles and also putting private petition articles at the end. It will be entirely up to town meeting if they support codifying, putting private petition articles and resolutions in a formal manner by adopting this article.
Yeah, so I've actually heard some debate at the joint session. I think there was at least one resident that voiced some objection to this, and the town will debate this. It is typical to have at least resolutions at the end, and if the town meeting so chooses, we'll have both resolutions and petition articles at the end. But in most communities that don't operate by a lottery, the selectmen just simply determine the order in the warrant, and believe it or not, that's where many citizens' petition articles end up at the end of a warrant. So again, it'll be a reason why you come to town meeting and tell us what's best for Marshfield.
How you feel about that? All right, article number 19 is a Select Board article.
So both 19 and 20, if I may, Mr.
Please.
Warner, will be linked. So Article 19,
You're going to link
yeah,
articles?
19 and 20. So Article 19, this article authorizes the town to establish a municipal affording trust fund and a municipal affording housing trust to provide for the creation and preservation of affordable housing in municipalities for the benefit of low and moderate income households and for the funding of community housing in Marshfield. So the first would create that and would create the trust. So right now, how we operate the Marshfield, because we don't have the trust, the Marshfield Housing Authority has been holding all funds except the CPC funds. And we were informed last year after town meeting that the Housing Authority no longer wants to hold our funds. They would like us to hold it. The only way we can hold those funds is to create the Housing Trust Fund. And then Article 20, if town meeting, so if they're linked, if town meeting supported 19, Article 20 is the actual language for the trust. And the trust, there would be a board of trustees. I think it's 5 to 7 trustees that would vote and manage the monies that are being held by the trust.
All right.
Yeah, and I just offered, the Marshall Housing Partnership, which has been a tremendous success over the years, was really created in order to be an advocacy group for affordable housing options, but has really kind of filled a void for us and attempted to do even more than what it was originally envisioned it would do. Instead of being an advocacy group, we've actually asked it to do things like create affordable housing, and that was really never within the scope of its charge. Most of the communities on the South Shore have already adopted this provision of the general laws and created their own municipal affordable housing trusts. And it really gives the town the ability to actually do what it sought to do and create affordable housing instead of just talking about it or advocating for it. In many cases, community housing trusts are funded with the CPA reserves for affordable housing, which allow them to go out and purchase units, seek out people that will partner with them, like Habitat for Humanity, and acquire other properties. And it's been a tremendous success where it's been adopted to actually create affordable housing.
Now, you, am I correct, authored most of this language here, is that correct?
I did, and it is similar to the language that's been accepted in probably in excess of 100 cities and towns in Massachusetts. And I will tell you that it just is, it is a tremendous help when you're actually looking to get something done to have a municipal affordable housing trust that can actually purchase a condominium, develop affordable housing. And Duxbury is to be complimented on its affordable housing trust. It partnered with Habitat for Humanity and found a 2-acre lot near the highway in Duxbury where it developed 6 units, and all of the units were super affordable housing, meaning they were affordable to someone that earns only 50% of the median area income. And, there's always a need for that. And one of the great things I think you see done with that. The other thing is, in many cases, apartments come up or condominiums come up, and we have a lot of condominiums that come up, and they can be purchased and restricted appropriately. And if we're able to do that in perpetuity, we have new units that can be added to our subsidized housing inventory and get closer and closer to our 10% goal.
Well, I just want to make the point here that I know Town Council did a lot of work drafting this particular language here. It goes on for several pages. But again, town meeting members, he didn't pull it out of the air. He's referring to other towns and cities throughout the Commonwealth that have these trusts. So please, it's a lot of work that went into this, and I hope you'll give it your consideration when it comes up in the lottery. The last article in the annual town meeting is this Article 21. This is a petition article. We have been told that the petitioner is going to withdraw this article in the town meeting floor, but until that happens, I think we ought to at least just explain what this is, Bob.
Sure. The Friends of the Peter Igo Park have been really helpful really from the beginning in asking for CPA funds to be appropriated by the town to improve Peter Igo Park. If anybody remembers 20 years ago what the condition of Peter Igo Park was, you'd understand why it really needed a jolt. And the Friends of Peter Igo Park have been tremendously helpful to do that. Unofficially, they've partnered with the Department of Public Works and through their own fundraising efforts, stepped up and really undertaken a significant amount of the ordinary day-to-day expense there, and they've really kind of driven the improvement to the park. And it's really kind of a nice showpiece down in Bright Rock now. If you go in there, you're happy to be there. It's neat and clean and well-maintained, and they're to be given a lot of credit for that. I think that they felt that they could do even more if they controlled the park, and I think they proposed, at least for consideration, whether the park ought to be leased to them. Maybe along the lines of what the Boys and Girls Club has done. I think the economies of scale are a little different. The circumstances are a little different. You know, a lot of the funds that have come in to make the capital improvements are actually town funds and public funds. And in the case of the Boys and Girls Club, a lot of that was private funds. There's nothing wrong with public-private partnerships. They work well in a lot of circumstances, maybe even in this one. But a lot of public money has been appropriated for this use. It wasn't all generated from the Friends of Peter Rigo Park, but I think they do deserve a lot of credit for making that park a tremendous place. And I know they've been awarded nationally some recognition for some of their programming that occurs at the park.
Well, Mike.
And I just want to remind people that the Peter Rigo Park is a town official park under our recreation department. And there has been lukewarm relation. There's always a little tuck and pull, but the park is there for the benefit of our residents. It's funded by a lot of residential tax dollars through the CPC, as well as private dollars that were raised by Peter Rigo Park and their organization. But private parks should stay in the town, and that way our residents have the greatest ability to have programs. There's no limitations on programs, and if there's a private entity, we don't know what will happen, but there could be limitations.
All right, so that concludes with Article 21, the annual town meeting warrant. We've gone through the special town meeting warrant, the annual town meeting warrant. We've told you do your homework. We've called to your attention the appendices in the back of the warrant that you want to take a look at. I hope to see I hope, I won't see you unfortunately, but I hope everyone listening to this exercise your right, come to town meeting. It is the remaining vestige of direct democracy in the United States. I originally came from another part of the country. When I first came to Marshfield in 1982, I said, what are you talking about? Town meeting? And it's a wonderful, wonderful governmental device. It's Marshfield's legislature. Be a part of that. We'll see you on Monday night. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.